Hello YouTube. Survival. I think it's a topic that catches most people's interest or piques our imagination from time to time. The idea of getting stuck in a situation where we need to rely on ourselves and our own skills to survive in nature. From the book Robinson Crusoe from the 19th century, I think, the 1800s, to modern computer games, from hardcore doomsday preppers to conversation starter cards like, if you could only take 3 things with you to a deserted island, what would you pick? Now, if you have spent any time reading or thinking about this, you have probably at some point heard about the rule of threes. It's usually said like, a human can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. And it sets priority list. Like, if you can't breathe, you need to fix that first. If you can't find clean water, you shouldn't worry about food. You need to find water first, because you will die. That will kill you. Lack of water will kill you in days. Lack of food will kill you in weeks. But there is one three that is often overlooked. Not always, but often, and I think it's pretty bad, and that is, a human being can survive 3 hours without protection from exposure to bad environments. Basically, if you are caught outside and you are soaking wet and freezing cold, you will die within hours. I would guess that it's very similar if you are caught outside in something like a desert in the blazing sun and you have no shade and nothing to protect yourself. You will be dead within hours. And I think this is really an important point, because outside of fantasy, and that's alright, fantasy is good, but outside of Fantasyland, most normal people in relatively peaceful countries won't probably find themselves in situations where they are days away from rescue. I mean, if your car breaks down in the middle of the night between where you are going and where you came from, yeah, it is very unlikely that it will be days before you can either walk to any kind of settlement where you can get help, or before someone else passes you and finds you and can get you can help you. That it would take days for that to happen is very unlikely, unless you're arriving in the really middle of, not even the middle of nowhere, but in like Siberia or on some complete wilderness. And if you're going out in complete wilderness, you should probably be quite prepared. But if you're in a normal person doing a normal travel, that's extremely unlikely. Even in the most worst case of circumstances, your phone dies, it's the middle of the night, you're caught in a storm, well, that storm will be over before days. Someone will come find you before it have been days, or you will be able to walk to get help before days have passed by. And even more so, of course, weeks for food, but hours, that's something else. You could very well, if you're caught pretty much in, like, on a pretty deserted road in the middle of the night, in a rainstorm, when there are not many people outside, and your phone is dead, it might be hours before you get help. And if you don't have the ability to keep yourself warm and dry, those hours might cost you your life. That's something that could happen to people, normal people. So, why? And of course, if you get lost in the woods or something, it's not likely that it will take days, but it might be hours before you get help. So while stuff like knives and water filters and flashlights are pretty fun things to have, and people who like to buy survival stuff usually like those kind of things, and fishing sets, and people like to talk about how they can make spears or bows to hunt animals and so on. More importantly is, I would say, things like a blanket. If you get caught in your car and it's cold and you can just take your blanket over you to keep warm, that might save your life or make that miserable night a little bit less miserable. Things like extra pair of socks. Not very fancy, tactical, but really important, because if your feet get wet and cold, that will mess you up pretty bad, pretty quickly. It's not a good thing. You might lose your toes. Any pair of extra socks would be good. This is a pair of wool socks. They are even better because they will keep you warm even if they get wet. But how do we keep our feet from getting wet? Well, the best thing would be a pair of really good boots, like rubber boots. But having those with you all the time, just in case, in a car or in a backpack, might be a bit inconvenient. What we could do is we could have small plastic bags. Whoops! And there the camera fell down. And we could take them over our socks into our shoes, and they will now keep water away from our feet, basically making our shoes a bit of a makeshift boot. I get a bit stuck sometimes. Other things to keep, because of course we don't only want to keep our feet dry, we want to keep our body dry as well. So again, having a full raincoat and so on all the time might be a bit inconvenient, but something like a rain poncho or a roll of garbage bags that you might make into a more improvised version of rain poncho might be something you could have in a car or in a backpack or somewhere, just in case. Yeah. I think I said what I want to say. That when it comes to survival, having a water bottle with you, yeah, good idea, and having something to eat, yes, good idea, but remembering to have stuff to keep you dry and warm, or protect you from the sun if that's more a higher risk in your environment, is way more important and often overlooked. Probably because it's not that cool. Peace out.